Hello, my name is Janbir Sandhu, and I am the Internship and Training Manager here at HomeFirst. Welcome to New Hire Training Week, and welcome to the training on the creation of county systems to support homelessness. So first and foremost, I want to remind you that this training comes across at the very end of our defining homelessness training. We were talking about our home not found study, right? So I'm going to pick up kind of that conversation where that home not found study ended up with. And we had in 2012, the Office of Supportive Housing was formed, right? So I want to pick up right there because in creating county systems, this is something that we're doing to align with a national agenda, but this is something in 2012 that was happening for our county locally. So in 2012, the Office of Supportive Housing developed their mission to increase the supply of housing and supportive housing that's affordable and available to extremely low income and special needs household. And they will do that by promoting a healthy and safe and prosperous community by ending and preventing homelessness. So now we have a specialized task force on the county level, just like we have the Parks and Recs department and we have the transportation department. We have a department focusing on supportive housing, which was huge. There are still a lot of communities and COCs across the entire country where that is not the strong point just yet. And the way that our COC does that is by engaging in different processes to really help define what does a continuum of care do. So a little bit more on the continuum of care later on, and that's something that the Office of Supportive Housing participates in, but they are the governmental arm of the plan to help end homelessness in Santa Clara County. Our coordinated entry system was also developed and put into action around the same time. It's referred to in many trainings as the quote unquote match.com of homeless services. That the coordinated entry system streamlines the process of someone finding housing if they're chronically homeless to individuals who just need light touch support. And it ranges their goals based on the most vulnerable individuals' needs first. So it's not a number, it's not a wait list. It really is a moving and updating system based on the amount of someone's vulnerability, based on what they're going through. It's going to prioritize their need to get housing first over someone else. Okay, what else? So we have a mandate by HUD, the Housing and Urban Development, for each county to participate in something called the Continuum of Care. I kind of foreshadowed this in the previous slide. The Continuum of Care is a basic entity that's designed to promote systems to address homelessness within each county. It's a framework of how we organize ourselves and deliver housing and services. This approach must have the keys of homelessness and understand what is going on in our community. So it just can't really be focused on the fact that we have no shelter, but it has to really take a look at all of the unmet needs in our community, physical limitations, the economic situation in our community, the social situation, work with government entities, work with the mayor's office and the board of supervisors to really develop a long-term strategy in managing efforts to end homelessness, right? So it's working with individuals, it's working with households to increase the access of the existing housing that's there, increase access of existing services that are there, like through the coordinated entry system, but also creating opportunities for linkages to mainstream housing. So making sure that we have things like the landlord incentive that was developed not too long ago, where landlords are incentivized to rent to veterans, to lend to low income and extreme income individuals, to rent to Section 8 and other vouchered individuals so that they can really address change in the community. So these continuums, the COC as it's short-lined, should have a multi-year plan to end homelessness. Usually it's a 10-year plan to end homelessness. And they've got to take a look at the needs of our community and evaluate how are they going to improve programs and services that are offered that are there and organize themselves around the funding that HUD puts out each and every year. So HUD puts out the notice of funding availability. We'll take a look at what that cycle looks like every year, and participants have to show that where we have resources, where we have gaps in our services, let's say in outreach or in emergency shelter or in transitional or permanent housing. So we've got to take a look at all of those steps and develop ways where we could use this new funding to help fix those gaps, to help bridge the difference. So we're really creating a pathway for unique needs of individuals to help end their homelessness and then prevent someone from returning back into homelessness. So this also means that they prioritize local funding, use local funding, but also at the same time, they're using federal funding to streamline that process as well. So the COC, those are the two main purposes. It's to make sure that housing availability is streamlined. Again, we do that through the coordinated entry system. And also we have a plan to address gaps in services throughout our county. Now, that strategic planning process of what that looks like, our COC is pretty much governed in the entire county of Santa Clara. So this might be very different for other COCs. So HUD mandates that each county participate in some continuum of care. So some continuums of care may have multiple agencies involved from multiple counties, or they may have multiple counties. So they all have to select a lead agency. That's the county oversight, right? They have to have a lead agency that can be broad-based. They can help facilitate, lead the discussion, have access to resources, and they should be part of the community to help assess choices, help sort of pull everyone together around homeless issues. It could be a government agency, it could be a coalition, it could be more than one team, or it could be a nonprofit organization. For a very long time, Destination Home was the oversight, and at this point, we have the agency called Home Base, which is our lead organization. Our counties are the lead organization with the county oversight in supporting our COC goals. And then we've got to make sure to identify potential stakeholders, identify who would like to participate in forwarding this agenda, this 10-year plan, this goal to end homelessness. And that's all of us around the table. Right? Who is around that table? So these are private, for-profit companies. This might be nonprofit agencies like ourselves, representatives from homeless subpopulations. This is government entities ourselves. And a continuum is only as effective as the folks who participate in it and take most use out of it. So our continuum here in Santa Clara County makes sure to use HMIS to record all data and meet around our HMIS data to collect everything that we're doing, identify gaps and where services are needed, and look towards developing more funding for those gaps. So that monitoring and that measuring of our performances is happening through HMIS, but also through the support of Home Base. They've got to put an application in each and every year for that notice of funding availability, and all of the planning, all of the performance evaluations and the goals that we set should continually work together for us to work in order to streamline that funding, in order for us to have a real sense of what is the funding that's available in our county, the funding that's available for different types of projects, let's say for Runaway Youth or for let's say, supportive services or for rapid rehousing or prevention programs, and really take a look at identifying those agencies and creating a process of having a competition, a lively competition for individuals to receive funds from the HUD McKinney-Vento Acts and other grants that highlight and align ourselves with state level, larger federal level, and local level funding. And of course, the VA adds to that, right? So the VA works outside of the HUD program. They're also on the same level. So the VA has their own internal structure of adding funding, adding programs as well. So there's sort of two different branches that we tap into to support both plans of ending homelessness and both plans in supporting affordable housing in Santa Clara County. So that I talked a little bit about the oversight of what does that look like, and we do that through HMIS data, right? So who sees it? And what does it affect? Our HMIS data, our county sees it on a local level. First of all, we meet about it every quarter about what is the shelter use, average nightly shelter use. How many individuals were housed through a rapid rehousing program? How many individuals use transitional housing as a bridge program to end their homelessness? How many individuals are now in a permanent supportive housing program in which a voucher has already been placed? And how many vouchers are still needed to address permanent housing needs for chronically homeless individuals with a disability? So all of these mile markers and more are taken a look at on a county level on a regular basis. Our data is collected and of course combed through by agency database supervisors. For us, that's Teresa Schmitz. She makes sure that we are on point with our data quality, and we are holding our data quality to HUD standards, to county standards. And then when we attend these meetings, we're able to report that data to HUD and to the VA. VA and requests some of this data to be sent to them on a monthly basis, others to be sent in a quarterly basis. HUD requires this, I think, on a quarterly basis, and then they make changes and announcements to programs either quarterly or annually. So all of this data goes into affect the funding that we receive and how much money a community, a county receives, and in what different types of programs. It helps identify for HUD the gaps in services that our community is seeing on the front end, so that when they allocate funds for us in that notice of funding availability, it's done so in very pockets of areas. And so they might make funding availability for a regional program or an evidence-based practice because that's something that we have a gap of. So those are some of the components, right? So they might promote a prevention program or an outreach and assessment program, or put more funding towards emergency shelters or permanent supportive housing, or let's say scattered housing. Or they might do something more about supportive services and rapid rehousing programs, increasing job readiness skills or employment specialists and things like that. So all of these strategies have to be discussed on a county level. So we are making the best plan forward, following evidence-based practices where it concerns ending homelessness in our county, and really accounting for the affordable services and the main line of services and housing for individuals who are disenfranchised in Santa Clara County. So we talked a little bit about the coordinated entry system. We're going to come back to that. I talked earlier about the fact that our county, our COC, uses this coordinated entry system now to really strategize and use our current pool of resources and make sure that it's available to everyone. So here I have an example. Oops, sorry about that. I thought it would pop up on the other screen, and it looks like it knocked me out of my PowerPoint. Let's go back to this page, and then I'm going to pull the scoring system here for you to see. All right, so this is from LA County, but our scoring system is very much similar. The VI SPDAT score is used in the coordinated entry system. Again, if you don't know, VI SPDAT stands for Vulnerability Index Service Prioritization Decision Assistance Tool. I can say that slower. Vulnerability Index Service Prioritization Decision Assistance Tool. And this is an interview process based on someone's self-report of what they're going through for us to measure the level of intervention needed. And 0 to 3 is usually measured as no housing intervention is needed, or for us to access local emergency assistance networks for someone to receive one-time assistance to end their homelessness or make sure that they don't enter into homelessness. If they score between a range of 4 to 7, this is where they need limited term assistance, where they are more qualified for a rapid rehousing program. We're going to talk a little bit more about what rapid rehousing and permanent housing and prevention, all these terms are. And in a rapid rehousing program, that's where they're receiving time-limited financial assistance along with case management to really help bolster their chances of reaching success in ending their homelessness and not entering homelessness in the future. And if they have a score ranging from 8 to 17, they are in a higher priority role, and they qualify for something called a permanent supportive housing. For that, someone must, of course, have, according to HUD, decision finalized in December 2015, that someone has to have a chronic disability and be homeless for over 1 year. And there's a whole definition. We talked about that in defining homelessness around what qualifies someone for being chronically homeless. But they've got to be chronically homeless in order for them to qualify for a permanent supportive housing disability so that they can receive a voucher and continue to sustain their livelihood, because they're on a fixed income or because they don't have the ability to keep up with market value of rent and housing and things of that nature. So that's the scoring sheet that we use as a county to qualify someone based on their priority. They're prioritized in a different category, and then each category is assigned by the county to each type of program: rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, and every single nonprofit provider, community services provider who provides services to individuals that are homeless pulls names of individuals based on that queue, based on someone who their HMIS VI SPDAT score. So now we have a no wrong door policy, or all doors welcome, as I like to say, policy. So all doors are open. If someone walks into an agency and does the VI SPDAT, that doesn't mean that their name is registered just with that agency, but now we've really opened up the county full of resources to them. Their name is added to the VI SPDAT score list, and it's added throughout everywhere in our community. So individuals can receive the VI SPDAT here at HomeFirst, and then later on be matched with an agency up in, let's say, Mountain View, because that's the area where they're connected to, and that's the area where they're homeless. So the coordinated entry system also helps us develop goals in assessment, planning, and think of treatment strategies in working with someone. If we know where someone prioritizes, we can really take a look at how is it that we can assess their needs for them to qualify for that particular program, help plan their treatment, and really use interventions to help end their homelessness. So how do nonprofits and government agencies, how do we all connect, right? And how do we collaborate? And there's different levels for us to do that. Number one, our coordinated, our continuum of care, our COC, allows us to do that. One of the other ways we do that is through the VA connectivity. The VA asks for community partners who have veterans grants to come together on a quarterly basis and talk about successes. They lead trainings, they talk about updates in order to make sure that we're all on the same page on the vision level. County level connectivity, of course, happens through our plan to end homelessness. We have a 10-year plan to end homelessness in Santa Clara County, and those updates are usually given at COC meetings, and updates are given on a county level through our COC meetings that happen around performance and around identifying gaps in services on a quarterly basis. Trust me, every single organization is expected to be there. Your attendance is counted, and all of that is reported to HUD when they are selecting someone to sit through a grant, or when they are applying through a grant. Their participation in these discussions are highly valued. Of course, our SPIN network, SPN, Services Provider Network, is another area where nonprofit organizations come together, connect, share resources, talk about the resources they offer, talk about how is it that they can have a wider net of services and serve a larger number of areas and individuals, and collaborate on that level and connect our services so that we can really help service more individuals and be of service to more individuals in our county. And our COC holds 2 biannual meetings a year where we receive updates from the county on our plan to end homelessness, on our collaboration, on notice of funding availability, on things that are happening on a nonprofit and government level in the larger picture of things in ending homelessness in Santa Clara County. Whoops, sorry about that. Oh, too fast, way too fast. All right, so the VI SPDAT, we talked a little bit about, the VI SPDAT is a tool that we use in the coordinated entry system to really align everyone. But how was that created? So the first VI, at first, it used to be something called a vulnerability index, where it was through the Housing 1000 project back in 2000, I think it was 10 or 12, where nationwide housing, we wanted to end housing for end homelessness for individuals who were permanently unable to work on permanent supportive housing. And the campaign was for us to house as many individuals as needed. So now we've got to prioritize their need, right? And we were doing that by using something called a vulnerability index, giving someone a number, and finding them later on when a voucher or housing was identified. This was sort of the precursor or the pre-steps for us to building a vulnerability index that also prioritizes their need. Right. So this was asking what their needs were, but it wasn't prioritizing it in a way in a coordinated way throughout the entire county. So the difference is that we've now added this tool to this decision assistance tool, the other part of the vulnerability index, so that now we have decisions, we have categories of when someone is conducted, we don't say, oh, sorry, you don't qualify for permanent supportive housing. You're not qualified for this list, right? It's more as all of your housing needs will be addressed based on the level of need you have. Of course, if you range in that 0 to 3 score and you're at very light touch support, the emergency assistance network can be of help. There may not be any federal funding or any county funding for you to receive help, but there are local citywide fundings and areas for you to receive help, one-time assistance in order for you to end homelessness or to halt the track of you becoming homeless one day. So that's sort of how all of these systems collaborate. The VI SPDAT connecting with the coordinated entry system and really finalizing and defining a method for us to utilize community resources that are already established in our county through the efforts of our COC that is led by then our county and home base in an effort to end homelessness in our county. And, again, having the arm of the Office of Supportive Housing to really drive and push that through with the COC's efforts in keeping us on top of our strategic plan and making sure that we're following up with all of our partners in the same way and really have a fair and justified existence of and access to programs for all participants coming in through any type of organization, nonprofit or not. If they are receiving or in need of housing services, homelessness services, then they are treated in the same fair and equitable way. So I hope I was able to draw the line and connection between all of them for you. And here's a quick preview on a training upcoming, but here's a government grant life cycle of what happens. So when HUD releases the notice of funding availability and the requests for proposals are put out on a county level, each organization then goes into a pre-proposal workshops and thinks about how is it they could use the funds, how is it that they can propose to serve individuals, what is the grant really asking for, and what are we being asked, what are those outcomes, how can we do that. Usually they submit the application, are awarded the funds, but at the same time we enter into contract negotiations. We take a look at the application and take a look at the reality of what we can do to finalize and submit final budgets and execute that contract, at which point we can start delivering services. So a lot of things need to happen on an agency level, on a HUD level, on a county level in order for us to begin services and deliver services to individuals. We'll talk a little bit more about this slide and a little bit more about funding and working with our community partners in another training. But I hope that allowed for you to see a little bit on how HUD funding is now streamlined through the COC and how that streamline of services now makes the competition for NOFA and for requests for proposals available to all county partners much more accessible and fair on a regular level. There's still work to be done, right? There's still work to be done. We can still tighten things up, conflicts of interest that can be wrapped up, taking a look at resources that can be developed or how else we can tightly knit and organize in the county of Santa Clara. But the work has already begun in order for us to come together, collaborate with an overall county mission of ending homelessness in our communities. All right, if you have any questions, please ask the facilitator at this time. They are all welcome. And I thank you for joining me in the training to discuss the creation of our county systems and taking a look at larger entities of housing and homelessness on a HUD and VA level. Again, thank you very much for joining me.